Hello, thanks for joining me. It's CA, and I am going to share with you how I work my gear on my production cart, or some call it a camera cart. If you notice, I get my gear to the location in my pickup truck, and that back lock on my tailgate, they've actually broken into my tailgate. They popped that lock, so now I use a padlock system. I got them at Home Depot. These are just master locks, security level 10. Still not perfect, but at least it's going to take a little bit of work and noise for them to break into my truck. This package, I'm working on a 3-day shoot. So everything you see in the bed of the truck is what I actually have narrowed down to being used for this production. I have my C-stands, I have all my grip, I have my lighting gear, I have my electric, and most important, I have my camera. And I'll show you how I pack it onto that film cart there. So the cart that I like to use, it's a Magliner Junior by Filmtools out of Burbank. This is about a 15-year-old cart. It's a heavy-duty professional cart, but I know they're expensive, but they're well worth the investment. You know, if you do prorated, it's been 15 years. Also, this cart only takes me a minute, literally a minute, to put together by myself. I work this gear all by myself. I've also opted for the C-stand holder on the rear. You notice I have a baby pin up here on the handle. And over on the back of the shelf there on the upper right, you'll see another baby pin I actually installed on the shelf. If you look at those tapes, that 2-inch gaff tape there is actually used as a safety to make sure the rack for the C-stand and the handle doesn't slide down, even though you tighten them. Just that's a pro tip there. Put some tape on there so it won't slide down. Now, you have to be careful with the cart rolling away because it's going to get really heavy. So I don't trust the mechanical brakes. I actually use sandbags and every time that I come to a stop. So make sure you make sure that you have brakes on your cart. And if you noticed, my first piece of gear I put on there is always my electrical distribution system for my lighting. Instead of mounting those ballasts directly on the light stands, I like putting them in a cart in a centralized location. Now on the second level of loading the cart here, I have put my slate. I also have my grayscale that I use in conjunction with my histogram to make sure my exposures are correct. And that Milwaukee Packout actually stows all of my set equipment that I use for administrative work, markers. I have my sausages, I have my T-marks, all that stuff in there. Now the top case here on this Milwaukee Packout is my lens case, and I'm running Rokinons on my Lumix BS1H, so I actually run Rokinons. I find them perfectly fine, actually. And I like these Packout cases because they stack and they're very simple and easy to get on and off that cart. Now you got to have the drink holders. I have one for myself and one for the director. And if you notice, I always put the drink carts either at the front or the back. I don't like having things hanging off the side. The reason being, I see that they have C-stand holders sometimes on the side, and you always have to take those off to get them through doors. So don't use those side ones. Now here is my next iteration of packing the cart. Here I have my Jackery. This is now going to power my utility box here that I have my 3 ballasts for my lights. I'm running IntelliTech LCD tile lights. I have 3 of those. I have a little I call mini lunch box. They're basically extension cord with a 4 plug in there. So my cart's pretty much powered either shore power or I can run the lights off of that Jackery. Now this is where I start rigging the actual cart. And you'll notice on those little baby pins, I've put the extensions, and then on top of the extensions, I have these double headers. And then mounted onto the double headers, I have these old school pipe clamps from Matthews. Most of my grip is Matthews. I like Matthews, and you can use American or Norms. I actually also like Modern, especially the rags. Modern has some great rags and frames, and I like those. Shout out to Jiro and the crew at Modern. So you'll see that this grip is pretty well used. And in fact, even though I'm rigging the cart with the grip, all of this stuff is going to be used on the actual shoot. So it double works. So we're not using grip just to stow gear. That grip is actually going to be used for lighting setups. Now this is my Matthews, I think you call it a junior light boom. It's a light boom, so you put on the end of that, you can put a light instrument, what I normally do, or you can put flags, diffusion panels, things that will actually extend out over uh, the setup, so you don't really need to worry about if you're doing an overhead or you need to block any light or get your lighting instrument out over the top of your subject. Now, once I have it rigged up, I start adding the actual grip that I'm going to be using. And in this instance, on those pipe clamps, you'll see a couple of short C-stand arms, and then you'll also see on this pin on the end of the double header another. So I usually run three short arms, and I also on that left on the front, coming around, you'll see up here on the front that I'm going to be running a long arm. There's an extra pin there available, and you'll see I'll put a light on that I think later. But here, as I mentioned earlier, I have a long arm, so I basically it's three short arms and one long arm. That pretty much holds me through pretty much every setup. Uh, three short arms, one long arm. The cart's ready to go. And on this next iteration, you're going to see that I actually start putting on my C-stands. Now I run three long C-stands, and I like C-stands over light stands because you can use them in a variety of ways. And light stands are pretty much only good for lights, so I like using C-stands. I run three C-stands, normal size, and then a short one there. And then on this short one, I always put that on the inside instead of the outside because I know always where I can find it, and I'll be able to keep track of how many stands on set. So the short one's always on the inside. I have three on the outside. You notice I don't have any of the grip heads put on the C-stand at this point. The reason being that I like having it clean before I start doing my setups. Then once I start working the gear, you'll see that I'll keep the gear, the gobo heads, and the arms on there. We're pretty much done. Now I got the IntelliTech lighting instruments. I have a two-panel softbox up there. You'll see that mounted. I have my tripod on the double head there. You'll see one IntelliTech without a softbox. Now this is a single 1 foot square tile light. That one I use as my backlight or a special light. You'll see my stingers are now hanging on there. And again, notice nothing hanging off the sides. That way if I need to get through a door, it's very efficient. Everything on this cart is going to be used. You'll notice my camera's on the bottom along with my full Apple. And I have my little dump bag with all the extra batteries and stuff. Tape rolls on the front. Pretty much ready to rock and roll for the whole day. Even an old guy like me can push this cart around. Now, notice as I'm coming up this driveway, I go nose in. No, never go sideways because the cart can tip. Just like a boat going out, let's say from shore out to the ocean, you want to go straight into the waves. All right, guys, here we go. Ready for another shoot? Thanks for joining me.